The wars between Romans and Persians lasted about 721 years, the longest conflict in human history. Albert Einstein never wore socks. Zach Galifianakis was approached by Nike to be in their advertising after the success of The Hangover. During the conference call, he broke the ice by asking, "So do you still have 7-year-olds making your stuff?" Over 99% of all species, equating to 5 billion species in total that ever been on Earth, have died out. The Antonov An-2-5 is the largest aircraft ever made and was initially created for the task of transporting spaceplanes. It weighs 285 tons, has a wingspan of 288 feet 88 meters and costs $250 million. In 1996, DC and Marvel Comics published a crossover series where Wolverine and Batman were made into one character called Dark Claw or Logan Wayne. If your eye were a digital camera, it would have 576 megapixels in them. Tourists throw over €1 million into the Trevi Fountain in Rome each year. The city uses this money to fund a supermarket for the poor. Bob Marley was buried with his red bison guitar, a Bible open to Psalm 23, and a bud of marijuana. In 1983, Marvel published a comic called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Ham. He was a spider pig named Peter Porker. In Bern, Switzerland, there's a 500-year-old statue of a man eating a sack of babies and nobody is sure why. The Queen of England legally owns 1/3 of the Earth's surface. There are several words that don't rhyme in the English language besides orange and purple. They include silver, month, ninth, pint, wolf, opus, dangerous, marathon, and discombobulate. The person who did the voice of Minnie Mouse, Russi Taylor, was married to Wayne Allowing, the voice of Mickey Mouse. There are now digital pens that can record everything you write, draw, or sketch on any surface. In 1976, an underachieving Princeton student named John Aristotle Phillips wrote a term paper describing how to build a nuclear bomb. He received an A, but never got his paper back as it was seized by the FBI. For years, an Indian named Rajesh Kumar Sharma has been teaching slum children who live under a local metro bridge, 5 days a week for 2 hours a day. He leaves his job at the general store to teach over 140 kids who would otherwise not be able to learn. Sternitophobia is the fear of sneezing. Studies have shown that smoking hookah is no more safer than smoking cigarettes, and in fact may cause the smoker to absorb more toxic substances than cigarettes. 85% of Chinese share only 100 surnames. Lian Zhang and Face cover 13% of the entire Chinese population. At the age of 15, Anne Mikosinski managed to invent a flashlight that is powered solely by the hand's body heat. She later created a headlamp that's also powered by body heat. The Queen of England's portrait has been on enough international money to make a progressive timeline of her aging. The first animal to ever ask an existential question was from a parrot named Alex. He asked what color he was, and learned that he was gray. There are fireworks that can be set off in daylight by using colored smoke. There's a signpost forest just outside of Watson Lake, Yukon. It was started in 1942 when a soldier named Carl K. Lindley was injured while working on the Alcan Highway. He was taken to the Army Air Station in Watson Lake to recuperate. While he was there, he was homesick, so he decided to put up a sign of Danville, Illinois, his hometown. Tourists continued the tradition, and there are currently 72,000 signs from around the world. Wild chimpanzees look both ways before crossing the road. The National Museum of Natural History in Paris began studying their vigilance and found that 57% of the time, they would run across the road to be extra safe. In 1978, Soviet geologists found a family of 6 that survived in the middle of Serbia who hadn't seen another human since 1936. When Edward I of England was coming back from the Ninth Crusade in 1272, he learned that his father had died and that he had been made the King of England. Instead of returning home to be crowned, Edward went on a leisurely trip to Italy and France for almost 2 years and only came back in 1274. The prestigious Michelin star, an award that the world's best chefs work their lives to attain, is awarded by Michelin Tires. For over 100 years, it's all been part of an advertising campaign to sell tires. Seattle fans were cheering so loudly and jumping in celebration after Marshawn Lynch's 67-yard run in which he broke 9 tackles and scored the winning run, that it registered earthquake activity on many nearby instruments. In 2004, police discovered a secret underground cinema with professionally installed electricity, phone lines, full bar, classic movies and recent thrillers, and more in the catacombs under Paris. Upon returning 3 days later, a note was found that read, "Do not try to find us." Tenochtitlan was possibly the most populated city in the world before its fall, with 5 miles of aqueducts, a 10-mile levee, and one of the most complicated class systems in the world at the time. Cortes of Spain leveled the entire city in 75 days. Asians are genetically less prone to become alcoholics. Dolphins can see our skeletons and sense our heartbeats via their sonar. They have even been known to ward off sharks preying on humans. Farting while wearing clothing in a sterile environment will not compromise the sterility of the said environment. When a person is electrocuted and thrown far off, it is the result of sudden and violent muscle contraction and not the result of the shock. This has raised questions as to the actual strength and capabilities of the muscles in the human body. Adjusted for inflation, the U.S. federal minimum wage has dropped 20% from 1967 to 2010. The first ever proposal to tunnel under the English Channel was put forward by a Frenchman in 1802. It would have had illumination from oil lamps, horse-drawn coaches, and an artificial island mid-channel for changing horses. The film Top Gun was made in collaboration with the Pentagon, and enlistment spiked when it was released. The Navy set up recruitment tables at theaters playing the movie, and polls soon showed rising confidence in the military. Louis Armstrong played the trumpet so much that it caused callous tissue on his lips. He would remove it himself with a razor blade. A Hungarian man named Bilakis murdered 24 women and attempted to pickle their bodies in alcohol before enlisting to fight in World War I. When his crimes were discovered, he evaded capture and was never heard from again. Horseshoe crab blood, at 60 a gallon, is valued to such an extreme degree because it is not only employed worldwide in bacterial contamination tests, it is also used in testings for every single drug approved by the FDA, making it a $50 million per year industry. During World War II, when U.S. soldier Dirk Vlug was ambushed by 5 Japanese tanks, he single-handedly destroyed all 5 and was eventually awarded the Medal of Honor. American mobster John Gotti's neighbor accidentally ran over and killed Gotti's son. He was abducted 3 months later and never heard from again. The Mall of America in Minnesota does not have central heating. Instead, it is heated by solar windows, store electronics, and body heat from shoppers. Herpes can immunize you against the bubonic plague. In 2014, Indonesia implemented a fishing and export ban on dead manta rays, each of which was sold for $45, as they realized that manta ray tourism can bring in $1 million plus during a single ray's life. Indonesia now has 2.2 million square miles of protected ocean for the manta ray. The Algerian national anthem was first written in blood on a prison cell wall by an Algerian revolutionary who was imprisoned by the French colonial regime. The channel catfish has 100,000 taste buds on the outside of its body. More than 28 million Americans, about 10% of the population, have hearing impairments. The vagus nerve, important for controlling heart rate and other internal functions, is the longest of the 12 cranial nerves. Charles Scott Sherrington coined the term synapse in 1897. About 30 million people, 10% of the population in the USA, have functionally significant hearing loss. Raccoons can smell an acorn buried up to 2 inches under dry, powdery sand. Ellen MacLeod Cormack, who won the 1979 Nobel Prize in Medicine or Physiology for the invention of computer-assisted tomography, never received a PhD, or MD.